Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephen Rabinowitz, and the great thing about doing a show from home is you can wear a great t-shirt and get away with it and say you're not fashion forward. Welcome to the show.
I'm Jay Kaplan.
And I'm Anthony Strait.
This is the On to Sports Live Smorgasbord preview. We're going to preview the NHL season coming up, and we're going to preview the divisional round of the NFL. It's not super, but we'll try. So that's all ordered up on tonight's menu. But first, we start with one keeping helmet of the New York Mets. And Anthony, say thank you, Uncle Steve.
Thank you, Uncle Steve.
All right. The combo of the Mets new owner, Steve Cohen's wallet, and the Cleveland Indians looking to tear it down for the 150th time led to the Mets getting superstar shortstop Francisco Lindor. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, solid number 2 to 3 starter Carlos Carrasco to the Indians for Ahmed Rosario, 3 prospects, a Buick, and a Rolls Royce to be later named. The Mets are making money moves. Anthony, what are your thoughts on this trade?
You know what? I was thinking about this trade, and I have to go back to just because of the fan reaction and the fact that this trade really kind of changes the dynamic of the National League East going into next season. It's a home run for the Mets because you get a guy who can be the face of a franchise, one of the premier shortstops in the league. Obviously, a great hitter who upgrades the lineup, but you get a really good starter who can really help a rotation that had a slew of problems last season, from Marcus Stroman opting out, Syndergaard's injury. And it was the star rotation is a complete mess. Like, I think back to Mike Piazza's trade from his brief stop with from the Dodgers to the Marlins, and then eventually to the Mets to find the last time a trade actually got a fan base excited, because it's almost like the Mets go from a team that maybe a borderline playoff team to an actual contender. When you think of the lineup with Lindor and Pete Alonso being able to play a full season, and the fact that the Mets only had a part ways with a couple of prospects and Ahmed Rosario, it's a huge win for the Mets. And the Mets being one of the few teams that had the money to kind of take on to offer Lindor a long-term extension. Also, Carrasco is on for $24 million for the next 2 seasons. You get a guy who could be a clear number 2, number 3 starter, and you add him to a rotation that's going to get Syndergaard back, that's going to have Marcus Stroman back to the fold, along with Jacob deGrom. And right there, you got 4 solid starters in your rotation right there off the bat. So for the Mets, it's a great trade. It wasn't surprising because I don't think anyone kind of saw this coming. But Steve Cohen said he wanted to make a splash. He wanted to make splashy moves. He wanted to kind of make a statement. And what a way to make a statement! To get the hot stove that was kind of cold for a couple of months to kind of really get it jump started.
Rabbi, it's kind of funny to watch fans like our pal Anthony here and some members of my family reacting to this trade like they'd won the lottery. And granted, in a way they did, though as much for the actual executing of the trade as for whom they got in the trade. Mets fans had gotten so used to their ownership not allowing them to hunt big game that they were absolutely giddy at seeing owner Steve Cohen give Sandy Alderson and new GM Jared Porter the green light to pull this deal off, and what they managed to get in the trade itself. I mean, you get Lindor, arguably, the best shortstop in baseball, 4-time All-Star, Silver Slugger, and Golden Glove winner, 5-tool player at a critical defensive position, adds depth to their lineup. Getting Carrasco adds that quality depth to their starting rotation. And if they can lock Lindor up long-term the way the Dodgers did with Mookie Betts after acquiring him from Boston, this deal will be even more of a blockbuster. I mean, think about this, guys. You're looking at Lindor batting second, and that's the most likely spot for him. Behind a leadoff hitter like Brandon Nimmo, who has an average on-base percentage of .397 over the last 3 seasons, gives Lindor a lot of potential RBI opportunities right off the bat, pun intended, as befitting a guy with a .502 slugging percentage over the last year who averaged 34 homers a year from 27 to 2019. Being a switch hitter gives the Mets lineup a little more balance. And if he gets back to averaging 42 doubles a year like he did from 17 to 19, then the guys behind him, specifically Conforto and Alonso, will get even more RBI opportunities. Carrasco is a great story, guys. I mean, he was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia back in early June of 2019. His recovery has been remarkable both on and off the field. Last season, he was back to his dominant self, 2.91 ERA, strikeouts per nine of 10.9. The Mets were in dire need, as Anthony said, of another starter behind Jacob deGrom in the rotation, and Carrasco certainly checks the boxes. Fastball is consistently 93 to 94 miles an hour. His slider is filthy at 86 miles an hour. His curveball buckles knees, and his changeup, which was his most used secondary pitch, keeps hitters off balance. I mean, think about this, man. Opponents hit just 176 against his curveball and 172 against his slider last year. Granted, 2020 numbers are a small sample size, but even if this guy is closer to the numbers he put up between 2017 and 2018, the last full seasons he played, I think the Mets will take it. We're talking an average record of 18-8 with a 3.33 ERA and a 10.5 Ks per nine. I mean, think about this, guys. Back in our November show, November 12th edition, we opened talking about Steve Cohen officially becoming the Mets owner and what that meant. And on that show, I threw out a quote from Sandy Alderson, which was this: I think we can now emphasize the acquisition rather than the cost. And guys, that's what this trade was, the emphasis of acquisition rather than the cost. Because the Mets were finally being allowed to act like the big market team that they are. They filled two of their biggest needs without giving up their top shortstop prospect, their top outfield prospect, and their top pitching prospect. Look, we all know that the bottom line, from a strictly baseball standpoint, this makes the Mets much better on the field. But as the Athletics' Ken Rosenthal wrote back on January 7th, the Cohen Mets are what everyone thought they would be, a threat not only to the rest of the NL East, but also to the Yankees' preeminence in New York. And Mets fans have been waiting a long time for that.
You just immediately said the one big thing out of this whole thing. The Mets needed to start making moves to show that they were players. I think everybody knew Steve Cohen would strike first, but it took a little while because that's the way baseball free agency is now.
Yep.
No one is rushing to get anybody in November and December. It's all about making the right move at the right time. And in a time when teams are losing money and, like the Indians, going to be, I'll say it, frugal with their earnings, the Mets are going to be, the Mets are going to be one of the only teams that are going to spend to actually get themselves a better product on the field. So it's a great move, honestly, for all of New York, because New York needs to have some big market teams come back into the fold to look like we are a city that people want to come to. I had seen somebody compare this to Jeff Kent. I doubt that seriously,
no,
but
Lindor is so much better.
Lindor is really a lot better, and he can be the cornerstone of this franchise for years to come. You'll have Pete Alonso, you'll have Lindor, and look at that pitching staff. When Thor could possibly be your number 3 or 4, look out. The Mets, I still think the Braves are a more complete team than they are, but right now the Mets are probably becoming that number 2 team in the division. I don't think the Mets.
Without question. You think about Lindor being able to hit in cavernous progressive field, which is where the Indians play. Now you put him in City Field. Well, the power alley in City Field is literally down the left and right field lines, and Lindor is a very good pull hitter on the left side. So I'm just thinking, he fits in perfectly. Like that. Yeah, he fits in perfectly in City Field.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on. We continue with the Super Wild Card Weekend. After that, though, becomes regular plain old divisional weekend. A weekend once called the best weekend of the football calendar before we fit 6 games into a weekend. Let's start with the AFC. We have one David versus Goliath matchup and one epically close matchup. We'll talk about that epically close matchup taking place in Orchard Park in just a second. But Jay, let's start with the Goliath. You have the Chiefs. And let's start with have the David. The Browns? This is 1994 all of a sudden? What about it, Jay?
I like it, right? You look, I mean, the Browns' path to beating the AFC's number one seed would seem readily apparent. Their ground game, their ground game focused offense led by Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt going against the KC defense that tends to give up long drives. You got the return of the head coach and primary offensive play caller, Kevin Stefanski, and that's good news for Cleveland. No disrespect to the job that Alex Van Pelt did in the wild card win against Pittsburgh, but it's a lot easier to beat a team that shoots itself in the foot time and again, as the Steelers did with 5 turnovers and inconsistent play on both sides of the ball. Credit to the Browns for taking advantage of all the opportunities they were given throughout that game. That being said, the Browns did what you have to do and are supposed to do, which is, like I said, capitalize every opportunity you're given and stay aggressive even with a lead. And that second part is imperative to beating the Chiefs. Cleveland's coaching staff has been very flexible with their game plans, adapting to whoever they're playing each week, and even with games as well as any staff in football. And that's Stefanski's doing, and it will need to continue if the Browns are to beat the Chiefs. I fully expect Baker Mayfield's high level of quarterback play now to continue, especially now that Stefanski's back. As I said on the last show, Stefanski's done an amazing job unlocking his quarterback's potential and consistently putting him in position to make positive plays. And guys, if Stefanski doesn't get a boatload of votes for Coach of the Year, I say the award's fixed. The issue for the Browns is on the defensive end, as it is for every team facing Patrick Mahomes and company. Cleveland really needs number one cornerback Denzel Ward to come off the COVID list in time to play Sunday afternoon to try and shut down Chiefs wide receiver Tyreek Hill. They'll need Myles Garrett to wreak some havoc on the Chiefs pass protection, which has not been great down the stretch, allowing 12 sacks of Mahomes in the last 6 games. KC has this aura of being an unstoppable offensive juggernaut that can store at will and run teams out of the stadium. But guys, the last time they beat a team by more than 6 points was back in week 8 when they waxed the Jets 35-9. Teams that you wouldn't expect to keep games close against the Chiefs, Carolina, Atlanta, to name a couple. KC beat them by a combined total of 5 points. Is this week off what KC needed in order to get themselves into playoff mode and flip that switch? Maybe. Mahomes had his usual MVP-like performance this season. Travis Kelce may now be able to claim the title of the NFL's best tight end. But with running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire dealing with hip and ankle injuries, the Chiefs offense is going to need someone in that to step up in that role. Le'Veon Bell at the peak of his powers would have been the obvious choice, and it's why KC got him. But that's not the version of Bell that I've seen. Now that could be the result of him getting less than 10 touches in 7 of the 9 games he's played since coming to KC. But if it's not, and he can't be the type of playmaker he's been his whole career, it makes the Chiefs offense that much less dynamic. That being said, Mahomes, Hill, and Kelce will be going against a pass defense that's ranked 24th in quarterback rating and 25th in touchdown passes allowed, and played a lot of soft zone coverage against the Steelers as Pittsburgh was mounting their comeback attempt. In the matchup of Kansas City's offensive weapons versus Cleveland's defense against those weapons, I'm going to give the nod to KC, especially with the best quarterback in the NFL at making plays off schedule running their offense.
Let me say, though, even though you mentioned the fact that they've struggled a little bit down the stretch, there are 7 other playoff teams left, and the Chiefs have already beaten 4 of those teams, and I believe all 4 of those games on the road. So that is impressive in itself. We'll see what version of the Chiefs come out in the playoffs.
Rabbi, we said the road to the AFC's Super Bowl goes through Kansas City. It starts now.
It does start now. Anthony, let's talk about Baltimore and Buffalo. No offense to Jay's Steelers, but I think they would have rather seen Pittsburgh than seen the red-hot Ravens come into town.
Yeah, you know what? There was a lot of talk that this matchup fits perfectly for the Ravens. And we saw it last week, and pretty much the whole month. The Ravens have gotten back to what they do best. They run the football, and they put the ball in the game in Lamar Jackson's hands and let him go and let him just tee off. You saw last week he had the big plays, the big runs, and the defense itself was able to step up and just shut down Henry and that Titans running game. It just literally took Ryan Tannehill out of this game.
Yep.
On a roll. Now you look at going to Buffalo. The Ravens are probably the hottest team. I mean, for the last month. You think about they're averaging over 262 rushing yards on the ground during the 6-game winning streak, including the playoffs. and then Lamar Jackson has 5 rushing touchdowns and 8, at least 20 over 20 yards in that span. Buffalo has had a very tough time this season stopping the run, and they're only like middle of the pack, number 14 defensively. They've actually given up the 3rd most rushing touchdowns in the league with 7, and the 7th highest rushing yards per carry to opposing quarterbacks. So this matchup fits up perfectly for Baltimore. However, on the other side is the other 2018 quarterback quarterback in that draft class, and that's Josh Allen. Last week threw for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns in the win over in the wild-card win over Indianapolis, and Buffalo is getting back to getting him moving the pocket, allowing him to roll out a little more, do a little more play action, because obviously Josh Allen dual threat of being able to run and scramble does kind of put defenses in the bind, as we saw last week, where he can pick up some cheap yards, get out of the pocket. He had a career high of 117 passing yards, just scrambling out of the pocket and on rollout plays last Saturday against the Colts. And if the Buffalo is able to do that, that does kind of put more pressure on that Ravens secondary if they're stuck playing man-to-man, because it's like, hey, look, you can't keep your eye on receivers and spy on a quarterback at the same time. You have to pick one or the other. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Ravens, who were able to tune in more on the running game of the Titans and kind of keep Tannehill and those receive everything in the pass game in front of them, as opposed to Josh Allen, who can get out of the pocket and buy more time for a guy like Diggs to get open downfield in a one-on-one coverage. So it's going to be very interesting, like I said, to see how Baltimore plays defensively. But it's going to come down to mistakes, and neither team really made any mistakes to turn the ball over last week. So it's going to come down to who can force the more mistakes come Saturday night.
And Rabbi, you talk about teams with about how Baltimore is going to grind the clock down, win time of possession, use being a run-based team. And people think, well, that'll help them. That'll play right into it. If it's close and Josh Allen has the ball with minute plus and 2 timeouts, all the winning of time and possession is not going to mean jack if they can't stop him on that last drive, because they can. Well, that's the thing. The Bills can score quick. They don't need a lot of time.
They don't need a lot of time, guys. But I think the one thing that happens with Josh Allen, we've never seen them in a position to do this and to win.
It's true.
Josh Allen has been pretty much running in front in this winning streak that's ended the season, guys. So who the hell knows what that'll happen? This could be something that Josh Allen, he looked good in the game against Indianapolis, but you'd want to see more on both sides of the ball from Buffalo. I give it to the fact that there's a lot of pressure. The town is all for them. All 4,000 fans, which sounded like 50,000 in Orchard Park.
Mafia gets loud.
Yeah, I told you that was about 16 weeks worth of picked up excitement finally coming out. But yeah, it's going we know the Bills can score. Can the Ravens open up the playbook a little more? Because they got back to the bread and butter of running the football, but Buffalo's been averaging over 30 points in 7 of the last 9 games. So I mean, it may come down to the Ravens and needing to pass big plays downfield. And I don't know if the Ravens are capable of doing that right now.
Well, we don't know if they're capable of doing that, but they haven't had to yet. If Lamar Jackson throws 59 times in a game, they're going to lose. Yep. If anybody throws 59 to 60 times in a game, again, Jay, they're going to lose. Simple as that. Let's talk about the X factors in both games. Let's start with Cleveland versus Kansas City. And I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt for Cleveland. It's a simple answer. He's going up against his former team, even though a lot of the situations that got him cut from the team, a lot of people miss Kareem Hunt on the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes gave him glowing reviews, saying he's one of the best players in the National Football League. And this season, he's had a pretty good year. 1,145 yards from scrimmage, 11 touchdowns, the same he had in his rookie season in Kansas City. But now he's almost a lightning to Nick Chubb's thunder. So he could be brought in as the best change of pace back probably in all of football. He had 2 touchdowns in last weekend's game, 8 attempts for 48 yards. And again, he wanted the Chiefs. This is not going to be a matchup of hatred. This is going to be a matchup of respect. we'll see what happens there. Sammy Watkins is the player I'm looking for in Kansas City. He jokingly said on Twitter during the Sunday Night Football game, you get a lot of competition from the Browns, and he said the Browns aren't really competition. So that might be some words to say.
Did he not learn from Juju that you don't give the Browns bulletin board material?
Did he not learn from Chase? Maybe Chase Claypool gave the Browns bulletin board material too. He had a calf injury in Week 16, but everyone says he's ready to go. Last postseason, 18 targets, 14 catches, 288 yards. In the season, he wasn't really that strong of a weapon. 37 receptions for 421 yards and 2 touchdowns. But he's an old reliable. So let's see what happens when Mahomes tries to find him on Sunday. Bills, Ravens. I want to look at Devin Singletary from the Bills. Zach Moss is out. They have a bunch of players who've been around the league a few times. I know they've had TJ Yeldon, and they also have Devontae Freeman, who they just signed to the practice squad, who had a cup of coffee with the Giants earlier this year. McDermott thinks that Singletary is able to carry the load. He hasn't been as good as he was last year. He only goes for 4.4 yards per carry. Last year, it was 5.1. But with Moss being injured, he is a much better pass catcher. He provides strength to the position, and he's going to have to move the sticks because both teams are going to have to rely on balance. Yes, even Baltimore is going to have to rely on balance through the passing game, which leads us to Hollywood Brown for the Baltimore Ravens. He makes Jackson a better thrower. His last 2 postseason games, 109 yards on 7 catches in the game against the Titans last weekend. And in 2020's or 2019's divisional playoffs, 7 catches for 126 yards. He's been more reliable. He's been known to have a lot of dropsies in the regular season. But I think if you have him as a weapon in the backfield, as a weapon in the receiving corps along with Mark Andrews, it's going to allow J.K. Dobbins as the lead rusher for this team. And, of course, allow Lamar Jackson to make plays like that play he made against Tennessee. Whew, boy, there's a lot of magic that can come out of Lamar Jackson. And we're starting to see shades of the 2019 MVP. It's going to be a little bit scary if he can get going. They also, remember, Baltimore won in Buffalo last year, 24-17, in a game that wasn't really that close in December. So let's see what happens when Baltimore goes back there again. These aren't the same father's Ravens from 2019.
I got a real X factor for you here, and it's going to be the weather. It is expected to snow in Buffalo this weekend, and Lamar Jackson looked at when he was told about that, he goes, my first time playing in snow. So we'll see how that affects him since he's never had to do it before.
You saw that with Ryan Tannehill a few weeks ago in Green Bay, and that did not work out too well. Let's see. This is a very interesting matchup, and honestly, I think that matchup is the match for the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing in the NFC, guys. We have one David versus Goliath matchup. At least I think it's a David versus Goliath matchup. I'll give 100%. You my thoughts on that in a second. And one close matchup, the nightcap of the NFC of the whole weekend, which features the only, I said it before and I'll say it again, 3 match in this weekend's playoffs. In fact, it's the only rematch of any regular season contest in this weekend's divisional round game. But first, Jay, to quote Stephen A. Smith,
I'm
saying
obligated not to do that. Out of respect for Anthony.
Nope, sorry. I don't care if you got blocked on Twitter. We've got a bad man in Aaron Rodgers versus a bad
Wait. Are you attributing the bad man quote to Stephen A? That's Mark Jackson's quote.
No, it's his quote. That's Mama, here goes that man. So it's bad man versus bad man on defense in Los Angeles.
Rams Packers, like you said, Rabbi, on the surface, this looks like a David versus Goliath. And no disrespect to the Rams defense, which for the 3rd time this season prevented Russ from cooking, but the Rams' chances against the NFC's #1 seed starts and could very well end with their quarterback play once again. Head coach Sean McVay won't tell us who his starter will be until 1 minute before kickoff. Just like he did last week. John Wolford barely took a snap, or so it seemed, before getting hurt on his second drive, forcing McVay to go with a still recovering from thumb surgery Jared Goff. And Goff struggled. 9 of 19, 155 yards, 1 TD, no picks. And he was seemingly slow making decisions, but he did just enough as a game manager making plays in the passing game when needed, as evidenced by his 17-plus yards per completion and plays of 20 yards and 44 yards twice. Now, as I noted in our preview of the Rams in their wildcard game against Seattle, whoever took the snaps for LA would benefit from the return to full health of running back Cam Akers and wide receiver Cooper Kupp. Both were big contributors in that victory. Akers, 131 yards on the ground, 28 carries, 1 TD, 2 catches, 45. Cooper Kupp, 4 catches, 78 yards before he got hurt. They're going to need him healthy this coming weekend to have a shot. He had one of Goff's 44-yard completions. The Rams' defense, especially Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, did their jobs. The big question is going to be the health and effectiveness of Donald, who, according to NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport, tore some rib cartilage against Seattle, though he is expected to play through that injury on Saturday. We all know what he can do when he's 100% and the impact it has on the rest of the Rams' defense. If he's hampered, the Rams' scheme to slow down the Packers' offense will take a hit, especially from the pass rush standpoint. I'm going to leave Jalen Ramsey to the rabbi, because that's his angle tonight. Sorry for the spoiler. But we saw how
What are you doing? What are you doing? What about watching? Now everyone's going to turn it off.
No, they won't. But we saw how he stifled DK Metcalf. His matchup with Devontae Adams, even if it's not on every play, is going to impact the game for both sides. And speaking of Adams, the chemistry between him and Aaron Rodgers this season has been at another level. Everyone knows DA is getting the ball. 28% of Rodgers' throws targeted him. 31% of his completions and 37.5% of his touchdowns went to Adams. And yet no one can stop him. 115 catches, 1,374 yards, 18 scores in 14 games. He was a big part of why Rodgers put up his best season since his MVP year of 2011. And Rodgers finally looks comfortable in Matt LaFleur's offense, which led the NFL in points per game at 31.8. 70.7 completion percentage, a tick under 4,300 yards, 48-5 touchdown interception ratio, 121.5 passer rating. He led the league in completion percentage, TDs, and passer ratings. Look, the Packers defense is going to be the overlooked unit in this game, largely due to the fact that they may not be required to make a play to win the game for Green Bay. If Rodgers, Adams, and company have their A game, especially going against a Rams offense and only managed 12.7 points per game over the last 3 weeks of the regular season, that doesn't bode well. That said, with the Rams quarterback play looking like a box of Forrest Gump's chocolates, you never know what you're going to get. Any turnovers the Packer defense can cause may be the straw that breaks the Rams back and prevents them from staying even within striking distance. If Aaron Donald can be his usual game-wrecking self and the Rams get even halfway decent quarterback play, they can make a game out of this. If any or both of those scenarios do not unfold positively for the Rams, Packers are going to run them out of Lambeau Field.
Well, ironically enough, thank you, Jay. You've now given us our second 1994 reference of the night with Forrest Gump. So we now officially feel like we're in Brown season all over again. And I'm kind of curious, what the hell are the Rams doing last week not activating Blake Bortles? He's not a great quarterback, but if Jared Goff does any more damage to his thumb, you have to play Johnny Hekker at quarterback. And I know we want to see Johnny Hekker at quarterback, but if you can put in a quarterback who has at least playoff experience from just 3 years ago, you kind of have to do that. And I think Sean McVay is – I wish McVay made a little more commitment to the quarterback, because I don't think it matters who's under center, whether it be a 100% Walford, a 70% Goff, a 25% Goff, or a 60% Walford. It's the same damn game plan, and I think Green Bay is expecting that. All right. Anthony, the Bucs have kind of a bugaboo with the Saints. Ass kicking in week 1, which was like a 20-point game that wasn't as close as it was, and a true ass kicking in week 9 in prime time where it was 38-3. Third time's the charm?
Yeah. When you look at the fact that this is the third time they're meeting, this has not been a good matchup for Tampa Bay. I mean, they just got mauled on Sunday Night Football before halftime. And of course, you lose to
in a game
week
they were
1.
favored in, by the way.
Yeah, and week 1 they got beaten on down in New Orleans, which is which is what the game's going to be this time around. Look, the Saints in those 2 games, They sacked Tom Brady 6 times, intercepted him 5 times, and forced a fumble. And by the way, they outscored him by 26 in those 2 games. So now you fast forward to going on Sunday night. Tampa Bay, their offense looks a little more intact. It looked like Tom Brady's a lot more comfortable. More importantly, it looked a little more like him and his receivers was on the same page. If you watch the win over the Washington football team, they're playing their best football of the season, at least so far, because they played well over the last month. During that span, they're averaging 35 and 8 a game, and obviously Brady's gotten more comfortable. Now you look on the flip side of that, Brady 145.7 yards off of play action passes, which is kind of important when you look at the fact that LeGarrette Blount left the game last week, and I'm not sure Tampa Bay even have much of a running game to even do play action. But if it helps Brady, hey, you try it. Yeah, I mean, you gotta have some kind of a running game for play action to work. Now on the flip side for New Orleans, look, let's be honest. If Rabbi, you did that game was a snoozer against Chicago. I mean, the only thing that helped the Saints was the fact that Chicago was so bad and conservative on offense. Look, Little Sheldon was the highlight of the Nickelodeon broadcast. That's how bad of a snooze fest that game has become. But the Saints defense is really the story of that game. And then you look at what they were able to do this season against Brady. Look at New Orleans. They hold the quarterback to the 4th lowest QBR in the NFL, 58.4. And with a top 5 defense and the fact that they don't rely too much on Drew Brees as much as they did in years past, as far as put points on the board, and you have a running game that has produced the most touchdowns of any team in the league. New Orleans is a little more balanced and finding ways of beating you without having to put up 40 points, as you saw in years past with Drew Brees in that dynamic offense. So it's going to really come down to whether or not Tampa Bay has finally figured out a way to protect Tom Brady and keep guys like Cam Jordan off of him enough for the receivers downfield to finally get open. Maybe Tampa Bay might be able to figure it out. Look, in the NFL, it is very rare to play a team 3 times, let alone beat them all 3 times in the playoffs. It's only happened, maybe 6 or 7 times in the 100-year history of the National Football League. Yeah, you have to really go back into the almanac to find out when the last time that happened. And it's going to be a tall order on New Orleans. I think Tampa Bay right now, they're the underdog. They can come out and play a little more looser, play with a little more house money. It's going to come down to whether Tampa Bay get out to a good start. I mean, if they can get out to maybe a 7 or 10 nothing lead early on and kind of put the pressure on Drew Brees and the Saints to kind of be forced into throwing the ball downfield, is something they really have struggled with, believe it or not, this season. They haven't had the big plays with their offense. Maybe they have a fighting chance, especially if the game is close in the 4th quarter.
Rabbi, correct me if I'm wrong, but Tampa Bay's record this year, all 11 wins are against sub-500 teams. All 5 losses are against teams over 500. Do I have that correct?
Almost 10 of the 11 wins. They beat Green Bay in week 6, but
okay, well, then it's now 11 with the win over Washington.
Yes, it is.
Things that make you go,
Well, it's things that make you go, but again, I'm going to refer to the Steelers game for a 3rd time from Sunday night. Not only is it hard to play against a team 3 times, you don't know what they're going to show you, as you might have seen. I know Pittsburgh shot themselves in the foot, but Cleveland played a whole new style that they hadn't played before versus Pittsburgh. So you have that. Tampa Bay is a little bit better. We saw with Baltimore that they did feed off of playing bad teams and went and beat a major bugaboo in Tennessee. I don't know what to expect from this game, honestly. I think Tampa Bay, if they play loose, they should be good. But again, the biggest enemy in those games this year, I know Brady's had pressure, but Brady's made some bad throws in the week 1 game, in the week 9 game. X factors of both games. Jay spoiled it. It's Jalen Ramsey on the Rams side. You shut down Devontae Adams, you got a good shot. I mean, he shut down DK Metcalf a good amount in the beginning of that first half, to the point where DK Metcalf was literally whining to an open crowd in Seattle, which in my opinion, caused the first pick. the linebacker didn't do a good job of taking it, but it was a ball that was specifically targeted for Metcalf, and that changed the whole game. He shut down Hopkins this year in matchups. He shut down Mike Evans in matchups this year, and shut down Allen Robinson, 3 of the premier wide receivers in the league. If he shuts down Devontae Adams, it forces Rodgers to be a little uncomfortable and looking for the other options. They're good options, but in the playoffs, who the hell knows, because they haven't had too much playoff experience. Just the 2 games last year, and the San Francisco game, they just got hit by a freight train. On the Green Bay side, Robert Tonyan, who should have been a Pro Bowler. We mentioned this last week when Joe was on with us. 11 touchdown catches this year. He fits the Green Bay system perfectly and has become almost a safety blanket for Aaron Rodgers, especially when we get into the winning time red zone. He almost has 10 yards per target. Every time you get it to him, you're pretty much guaranteed a first down. And he's caught 90% of his total targets this year. I think that number is like 9% for Evan Ingram, but I haven't actually done the math. I got to continue to look at that.
You're probably not far off.
I'm pretty close. For the Bucks versus Saints, I'm going to look at the Saints first. Latavius Murray, if he comes back from his leg injury last week, he left in the 4th quarter. He's the change of pace back for Kamara. Murray's had some good games himself this year. I think Breeze has a little bit more of a connection with Kamara. You didn't really see that when Taysom Hill was taking the snaps when Breeze was nursing his injured ribs. Catches the ball out of the backfield. So you got Kamara has always needed a lightning to his thunder, but Kamara's been able to take more of a lead role this year. But when it comes into the playoffs, you always be the number 2 guy. And finally, for the Tampa Bay Bucks, I'm looking at Antonio Brown. When Tom Brady isn't giving Antonio Brown his bonuses in a meaningless last game, he's actually doing a pretty good job. He was on pace. If you give him a full season, he would have been a 90 reception, almost 1,000-yard guy, even with what he had, 45 receptions, 483 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He is the key to making Chris Godwin almost a slot guy and being a number 3, because Antonio Brown has the possibility of being the number 2 deep threat. We all know it's Mike Evans is your number 1 target. He's one of the best receivers in the league. He's probably the most physically built wide receiver in the league. Him and Brady are starting to get a little bit more of connection. And obviously, you got Gronk. Brady finds Gronk, Brady happy, Gronk happy, cavemen both happy. So you have that all said. Antonio Brown is one of the wide receivers who has experience in this round. I hate to say this line. He can be a locker room leader. I don't believe I just said that. It's
sorry, Rabbi. Anytime you say anything about Antonio Brown being a good citizen, this is the contractually obligated response from me.
Well, while you do that, I will say that he's only doing it because it's his last chance in football. And I think Antonio Brown isn't the cause of it, but he has to go and see what the Steelers wide receivers have been vilified by the media this week for their youth. And he has to put a little bit of a Cheshire grin smile to his face in the corner where nobody can see it.
That's because he can never be a graceful winner.
He can never. I'm Antonio Brown. I never would be a graceful winner, but that's not neither here nor there. Let's move on. Let's get to the ice and the other reason why we're here tonight on a Tuesday. Doc Emmerich's career may not have made it to 2021, but Wednesday, January 13th, will start the NHL season non-bubble edition. Let's start with the locals. The Rangers took advantage of the expanded playoff system to make it to the bubble, where the Hurricanes promptly took them out in a 3-game sweep. But with that elimination, it gave them the possibility at the number 1 draft pick in the NFL draft, and they won it! Oh my goodness! So, Jay, we have storylines to start for the 2021 Rangers New Year. Let's start with the Garden's new savior.
Well, Alexis Lafreniere, being the number 1 overall pick, number 1 overall pick, number 1 media market. You add those 2 things together and you get a ridiculous amount of hype. Is it a recipe for stardom or disaster? Look, the expectations are that this kid's going to set the NHL on fire. In reality, it probably will not meet the hype, but it doesn't need to for the Rangers or even for him to have a good season. Like you said, Rabbi, the Rangers making the playoffs, what was due to the COVID scenario. But, if they get back to it this year, it's not going to depend on their first-round pick this year or even their first-round pick from last year. That's largely because overall the Rangers aren't expected to make the playoffs. You know, if last season was played under normal circumstances, the Rangers wouldn't have been in the playoffs. And that's and we're looking at 2021 as kind of closer to a normal regular season than we had last year. Look, the kid's had a decent training camp, hasn't stood out, but he hasn't done anything poorly. He admitted to having some nerves and recognizing that the pace of the game is much quicker than what he was used to in juniors. Less time with the puck, less time to make decisions with it. So you have to think the game quicker. How he makes that adjustment will be a large part of how successful his rookie season will be. Chris Kreider, one of the few veteran forwards still on this roster, has been impressed with the kid. Sees his skill set, says it's quite evident, the ability to keep the puck on a string, sees the ice well, keeps his head up, is very strong on skates, and he competes. Head coach Dan Quinn has also liked what he's seen in camp, echoing a lot of what Kreider said. Look, the Rangers' first two lines are pretty much set. Kreider with Pavel Buchnevich flanking Mika Zibanejad. That trio has history together, good chemistry as a result. They, as a unit, they can erase any doubts about Zibanejad's defensive issues and do an excellent job together of driving play. They had an excellent 55% expected goal rate, which led to a 65% of actual goals. And if the Rangers can get that consistently, they'll be in good shape. The team's second half surge coincided with that trio being united, and it's no coincidence, and it was especially a godsend for Kreider, who had a very rough start to the season. The second line, look at it this way. Any line Artemi Panarin is on can be an elite one. Rabbi, I know how you feel about this guy. And the Rangers will benefit from having him for a full season. How's this for an impact stat, guys? When Panarin was on the ice at 5-on-5, the Rangers outscored opponents 75-38. When he was off the ice at 5-on-5, the Rangers were outscored 105-75. Ryan Strome, who centers that line, who definitely benefited from playing on Panarin, playing with Panarin, to the tune of a nice 69-point pace season, where he scored 2.09 points per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. And Capo Caco, Rabbi, am I pronouncing that correctly?
You are correct.
Okay, are the guys who were expected to be on that line with Panarin? Caco, the kid needs to improve his play. He had a very rough rookie season, though based on his improved play when the NHL reconvened in the bubble, there is some optimism, and maybe playing alongside Panarin for a full season, we'll see this kid start to move down the road towards the potential the Rangers think he has. What does all of this mean? It means that Lafreniere will likely start playing on playing third line minutes, on a line with Philip Chytil and, Vitaly Kravtsov. Not a lot of pressure for him to be a major offensive force. Yes. So he won't have anything remotely close to the NHL equivalent of, him scoring the 112 points he put up in 52 games in his final year in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. The fans and some of the media may have the kid under the microscope and may be expecting big things from him because big things are always expected of a number all over well pick. I won't be one of those people. If by the end of the season, his talent has caught up to the speed of the game and he's making more positive plays than negative and giving the third line some scoring punch, that'll be a good rookie season as far as I'm concerned.
Anthony?
Yeah, I'm going to look at the change of the guard at net. I mean, for the first time, since 2004, the Rangers will be starting opening night without Henrik Lundqvist. I mean, you have to go way back. And it tells you how long of a mainstay Henrik Lundqvist was in the Ranger organization.
It sounds weird just hearing you say that, Anthony. It just doesn't seem like.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very, very long time. But now we go from the winningest goaltender in Rangers history to now two young stalwarts who will be asked to fill the mantle or fill the net, if you will, and replacing a Rangers legend. And if you got to start with the youngster, Igor Shesterkin, the 25-year-old goaltender who was the fourth-round pick, 118th overall, and the first Russian-born Ranger goalie in the franchise history. He comes in with a high pedigree, best career goals against average and save percentage in KHL history. And he started 9-1 in his first 10 starts with the Rangers. First goalie with 240-plus save games in his first 6 starts, and probably would have been the starting goalie had it not been for an injury going into that qualifying series against Carolina, which, which actually allowed him to get one last Swan Song start in the first 2 games of that 3-game sweep at the hands of Carolina. He's going to be splitting his time with Alexander Georgiev, who was 17 and 14 in his own right. And the way the schedule breaks down is just as much as you need a really good number one, you're going to need a good number two as well, because the schedule's condensed. You're going to be playing back to back. You're going to be playing a lot more divisional games than in years past. I mean, the Rangers alone, the Rangers are going to be playing 8 against teams they literally see all the time in their own division. Not to mention now they have the Bruins to have to deal with in the East Division. So at the best case scenario would be if both goalies are very well, if Shesterkin can actually really become that number one, he has the opportunity to do so. If both these young goalies can hold up the Rangers, have a great opportunity to get into the playoffs. But you have to look at it like this: and the question was, is the rebuild officially over because of the Rangers being able to add key pieces the last few years? And we saw against the Carolina playoffs, they're far way off from being a Stanley Cup title contender right now, but they're going in the right direction as an organization. And just a tip out there, Leffinelli and Panarin, I'm enjoying playing with these guys in NHL 21. I just like to throw that out there. Even the NHL 94 Reboot Classic, I love playing with the Rangers.
Okay, let's
stop
there.
But, all right,
stop
to throw it off top, too, they're going to need the goalies to really be very well, because one of the Rangers' biggest weakness is defense and being able to stop anyone in front of the net. And they weren't a great defensive team last season, so they're going to really need the goalies to step it up. They gave up the second most shots allowed per game. Only the Blackhawks was worse in the National Hockey last season.
Well, first of all, let's mention some things about the schedule. They're only playing teams in that division, so it's kind of going to be just a mauling for teams. And there's no easy games in that division at all. Luckily, they will be playing a lot of one night on, one night off, but there's only 2 back-to-backs in the entire schedule. But you're going to see a lot of the same opponents. Like they'll play Pittsburgh twice in 3 days. They'll play Philadelphia twice in 3 days. They'll play Washington twice in 3 days. So that's something. It's a new wrinkle inside kind of what the NHL is going to try to do to prevent more of a COVID outbreak, because you already have the Dallas Stars who canceled 4 games, my friends, to start their regular season.
17 positive COVID cases out of 27 across the entire NHL. Dallas, what are you doing? Are you trying to just hand the division to Tampa Bay before the season even starts? Come on.
Well, you've done your research. We'll talk about that in just a second.
Yes,
so a couple of predictions for the Rangers. This team is going to be hella fun because we haven't really seen too many young Rangers teams with expectations, and they're going to make more impact than you think they actually will. But I think you're going to see Shesterkin and Grigoriev split time, almost 50-50. I would not be surprised, because with Shesterkin's injuries, you want to kind of lead him along. This is not the season to be like, hey, Sid, go out and be a star. You almost have to survive this season to get back to the normal life we might have in 21-22. Panarin, I think, will have a better season and will be an MVP candidate again, not just because I love him, but because of the fact that I think he is a very talented player playing in one of the biggest media markets in the world. I think people will not be surprised if he ends up in the top 3 this year. And I think they're going to be a playoff team. I think they're probably going to be either 4th in the division or 3rd in the division. I think Washington's a better team. Obviously, I think Boston's a better team. They were the President Cup winners last year. And then Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and the Rangers, I think he could do any combination of 3, 4, and 5. Don't know how Pittsburgh is building their organization. They're almost always in that, we're going to tear it up or we're going to make a run. And Philly is improving very, very quickly, but you're going to see the team that had a hot end to the season, or are you going to see the team that is going to struggle? We've seen teams have one-year peaks and then fall down to the mean. But I think the Rangers have a very good shot at a playoff first. Let's move on. The Islanders took that extended COVID break, and they took a team that was struggling before COVID to a team that made it to the Eastern Conference Finals of the bubble and a 6-game series versus the eventual Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. It was one of the best stories in the league, and I double say this, feel like it was 1993 again. We're finally getting back to the early 90s on today's show. I'm actually all for it. I want to be a 10-year-old again. Let's go. Let's start with storylines again with Jay.
Rabbi, all the teams you just mentioned that the Rangers are going to have to deal with, I noticed you didn't mention the Islanders. Why?
I didn't mention the Islanders. We'll talk about that in a second.
Oh, okay. You were holding back. I got you. The angle I'm going to be looking at is the return of Matthew Barzal and what it means for the Islanders and the forwards unit. There are still some details that need to be worked out in order to get the Islanders under the cap for this season, which they needed to do by tonight when the season officially starts in terms of the new year. And they were hoping to move players and money around in order to get a 6-year deal for Barzal, but that didn't quite work out. However, he is officially back in camp after a 5-day absence with his John Hancock on a 3-year deal worth $7 million per year, and back in his usual spot on a line with Anders Lee and Jordan Eberle on the Islanders' number 1 line. That trio combined for 45 goals, 88 assists, and 143 points. They were 2-3-5 on the team in goals, 1-5-6 in assists, and 1-3-5 in points. Having this line back together will allow head coach Barry Trotz to get a look at the other wingers. He's looking to have flank Jean-Gabriel Pageau on the Islanders' number 2 line. He'll also get a chance to set up the team's 2 power play units, Barzal with Lee and Eberle, along with Ryan Pollock and Noah Dobson. And then the other unit will be Anthony Beauvillier with Brock Nelson, Josh Bailey, alongside Nick Leddy and Pageau. Special teams was a big focus of this past Saturday's practice. The Islanders were in the bottom third of the NHL in power play success rate at only 17.3% and only 15th in penalty kill at 80.7. The team we saw in last season's playoffs was an analytics darling, true to their system and making it work for them all the way to the conference finals. Can they do it again this season, especially in a shortened one? They'll need more production out of their forwards in order to do that. Look, we all know that Barzal is a legit first liner. It's why GM Lou Lamoriello worked so hard to get him back. But they're going to need better production from both Anders Lee and Jordan Eberle on the line overall. When your number 1 point scorer tops out at only 60 points, that's not giving the team a large margin of error offensively. Granted, it wasn't 68 games. Nelson is a solid second-line center, and with Bailey and Beauvillier between him, the Islanders have depth in their top 6 forwards. Pageau and Casey Cizikas are 2 of the best bottom 6 centers in the NHL. Cizikas graded out as the best 4th-line center in the NHL, but JPG, while one of the better 2-way centers in the game, is more defensive stopper than sniper. As I noted, Trotz still hasn't nailed down who's going to be alongside him. Those wingers will need to have some offensive ability. Michael Del Cole and Leo Komarov seem to be the choices right now, but neither of them has me seeing 20-goal potential. Last season, the Islanders' number 1 line had a 55% expected goals rate, but only got 46% of the actual goals. If they start getting results to meet expectations, the Islanders will have one of the league's better top lines, and that's what the Islanders are hoping for with the return of Matthew Barzal.
Yeah, let's see what happens. This Islanders team is going to be fun. Anthony, what are you looking at?
Well, I'm looking at the Islanders, and they're having some depth issues as far as the defensemen is concerned. Gone is Devin Taves. He's moved on via free agency, but also Johnny Boychuk unexpectedly retiring during the offseason leaves the Islanders with very little margin for error as far as the defensemen, because we think of Barry Trotz's defensive system doing a lot more of the dirty work as far as the goalies are concerned, but now they may have to do a little more, ask a little more from the combination of Varlamov and Sorkin, who are going to be splitting time, obviously starting that net for the team. You think about this, where's the support going to be for Nick Leddy and Scott Mayfield? I mean, they're going to be asked to take up a lot more time on the ice, whereas in years past they haven't had to. Then you think of Ryan Pollock and Alan Pellick, and also health is going to be a big concern. Part of why Boychuk retired was because of all the injuries piling up. And with the loss of Taves via free agency, and like I said, it gives the Islanders a very, very small margin of error as far as having to juggle the defensemen and come up with the right combinations. It's also and having to deal with the health concern with all these guys. They've all missed out in years past because of injuries. So it's going to be a question of can Barry Trotz this system compensate for the lack of depth that they're having right now going into the season as far as a defenseman, and if it's going to come at them, bite them on the real end as the season progresses. Because for Varlamov and Sorkin, you saw in the playoffs, they really weren't called on to really take over a game or have to win a game for the Islanders in the postseason. It might be a little different this time around when you consider that they have such like I said, they really thin up in front of them as far as protecting the net, and it's going to be a real question of how, and especially in the shortened season, if that depth problems catch up to them.
Yep.
Well, you don't have Thomas Greiss this year. Sorkin is going to be doing a lot as a rookie. I know Barry Trotz said he liked a lot of the stuff that he saw while he was in the bubble. They carried him almost as an emergency 3, but obviously Varlamov, who had a very good season, they didn't expect a lot out of him. He had a very good November and December, and he became a solid guy in the postseason. There were games where he would let up 4 or 5, especially on the tail end of the Philadelphia series. And obviously, when you play a team like Tampa Bay, you're going to eventually be shot, and you're going to have to win games 5-4, which they almost did. So I'm very curious to see how that goaltending situation. I expect a little bit of a drop off from Varlamov, but who knows? I think the Islanders missed the playoffs, guys. That's why I didn't mention them before. I think they're a fifth place team with the top 4 making it to the postseason in the league. There's no wild card opportunity here. You have to finish in the top 4. I don't think they're going to do that. I think eventually Sorkin will be the goaltender. They'll have a lot of bricks laid for the future. This is a team that, again, I think is in that zone. I think Trotz makes them a better team than I think they actually are. And I think he's played to the most of that team's expectations. This might be the year they take a little bit of a step back. They might still be a team. I don't want to say how many points are because I don't know what the expectancy is. So I would say maybe they would be on the cusp of what a 90-point team would be over a full season. But in this league, you might have to get like 96 to 100 points truncated to actually make it to the postseason. So I expect a lot out of the Islanders, but I think this is the year where the rest of the league, who has more talent, the rest of the division, who has more talent than them, again, you're adding Boston, catches up with them.
Fair enough.
Yeah, my niece is not going to be happy with that prediction one bit.
No,
so I'm just going to say, if you see a young 17-year-old yelling at you in the comments, I will apologize in advance.
That's
Understood.
perfectly fine. I'm expecting the barrage.
For the trolling. Hey, look, if she doesn't, I give you permission to block her on the page, okay? She can be very.
What kind of an uncle are you?
Jeez,
what
man.
kind of an uncle are you? Jesus.
Hey, look, she's 17. She got a little. There's a price to pay for being a diehard fan. I mean, hey, look, her uncle got blocked by Stephen A. Smith. Okay, so I'm like the last person.
Her uncle gets blocked by everybody, including Mark Zuckerberg himself. All right, let's move on, guys.
That too.
Let's move on, guys. The Devils will have had a 10-month hiatus from any ice activity. I made already all the pregnancy jokes with the New York Knicks, so I'm not going to be doing that again here.
Thank you.
With an expanded Eastern Division, and that's with the expanded Metropolitan minus Carolina, but with Boston and Buffalo added. With that entire expanded Eastern Division, the Devils might want to stay sheltered in place in Newark. Fortunately, they have to have this season. Anthony, start our storyline preview first this time.
Head coach Lindy Ruff. A little bit of a background for him. He's coached the NHL for 19 seasons. 6 all-time in wins with 736, and 7 in games coached with over 1,493. And he has taken over a team that, you know what, going into last season, they kind of had a high expectation. They drafted Jack Hughes first overall. They traded for PK Subban. At the time, they didn't know what was going to happen to Taylor Hall, and then it just completely fell apart halfway through the season. He's taking over a team that's just going through a rebuild. And I think his biggest challenge right now is trying to decide what kind of a team they're going to be. I mean, it's like when you have a team that's in a rebuild, the way the Devils saw and the way they went from taking the right steps and making the playoffs 3 seasons ago to completely bottoming out in the Metropolitan Division altogether last season. you kind of figure you gotta go through whether or not it's an identity crisis right now. And moving forward, they have a new GM, they have a head coach, and the expectations are very low. And like you said, Rabbi, with the addition of Boston and Buffalo in the now East Division, which I think is sponsored by Viagra or someone like that. They sell all the naming rights to all these divisions. The Devils, expecting the Devils to even be anyone but a last place team would be an accomplishment right now. Look, they're not a good team right now. Outside, and the Devils being bad. The only good thing about the Devils really was the relationship between PK Subban and Lindsey Vaughn, which is no longer a relationship, and basically maybe and like I said, PK Subban has focused and locked in to be good for some highlight reels, but I can't expect much out of Newark this season. Right now, it's going to be whether or not they have the pieces to build and move forward.
So mentions of the Devils goalie situation. 0 mentions of Lindsey Vaughn in the analyst 1. Okay. This is what you get on the sports lines. Hard-hitting analysis about PK Subban's relationship status.
Hey, I'm all about the pop culture, baby. What
You
can I
are
say?
indeed. But Rabbi, the reason Anthony didn't mention anything about the goaltending situation is because he knew I got this.
Keep
That
going.
is what I am looking at. And the Devils' goaltending situation took a dramatic turn for the worse with Corey Crawford's retirement. I mean, the Devils signed him as a free agent back in October after he had put in 10 seasons with the Blackhawks, where he won Stanley Cup championships in 2013 and 2015. He was projected to be the number 1 goalie this season, but after an initial announcement by the team that he was taking an indefinite leave of absence, he abruptly retired on January 9th after only 2 days of practice. He's yet to disclose the reasons behind the decision, and he's under no obligation to do so. But he's dealt with significant injuries, including 2 concussions in the span of 12 months, as well as testing positive for COVID, which caused him to miss all but 1 practice during Chicago's return to play camp in July. And while COVID-19 continues to ravage the country, Crawford and his family, which includes 2 young children, were just settling into a new area. All of which could be why he decided to call it a career. Unfortunately, it leaves New Jersey with 4 goaltenders under contract who have a combined 96 games of NHL experience. As of now, Mackenzie Blackwood is the Devils' clear-cut number 1 netminder. New head coach Lindy Ruff has stated that Blackwood, only 24, may have to handle more of a workload than intended, with Crawford no longer an option. You think? Blackwood played in 47 of the Devils' 69 games last season, starting 43. Went 22-14 with a goals against average of 2.77 and a .915 save percentage. He was the only Devils goalie who had an above 500 one-loss record last season. Scott Wedgwood would seem to be the number 2 goalie as of now. The Devils drafted him back in 2010, and he played 4 games for the team in 2016. Though in the minors, he put up a 155 goals against average and a .933 save percentage in 22 games played. Starter potential, but the Devils didn't hang on to him. He bounced around after that with his last significant playing time in 2017-2018 with the Coyotes, where he was 5-9 with a goals against average of .345 and a save percentage of .893. He got a ring as Tampa Bay's 3rd goalie when the NHL returned this past summer, and he was on the ice to celebrate as the Lightning won the Stanley Cup. And Ruff has liked what he's seen from the Brampton, Ontario native so far in camp. The Devils will likely keep an eye on the waiver wire to see if there are any possible candidates that can improve their depth in net, as they'd prefer not to give ice time to either Gilles Sen or Evan Cornier, who are the other 2 goalies in camp, and are looking like more like taxi squad goalies as of now. Jeremy Brodeur was recently signed to a minor league contract, but Marty's little boy is nowhere near being ready to play at the NHL level. As for veterans that are currently available, the only one with any type of real resume is Jimmy Howard, who went 2-23-2 with a .420 goals against and .882 save percentage for the last place Red Wings last season. But he was a Vezina level goalie from 29-10 through 2014-15 with a trio of 35 wins, along with a 2.41 goals against and .916 save percentage. Slim pickings, guys. A Crawford-Blackwood tandem in goal would have given a young Devils team an outside chance at the playoffs, But a Blackwood-Wedgwood tandem in this division? Yeah, I'm thinking not so much.
I don't fit. So I'm going to give you a quick prediction for the Devils. Last place team. Okay. That being said, I want to go through that Eastern Division really quickly because we're going to talk about the other three divisions. I have the Devils far and below last place. I wouldn't even think of putting the Sabres anywhere near them. They're sixth in my mind. Still a young and upcoming team, but again, this is not the year for them, especially in this division. They would be better served to be back in their original division. Fifth being the Islanders, like I said. I'm not going to be too brazen and put the Rangers up in third. I'm going to keep them fourth. I'm going Pittsburgh 3, Philly 2. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me do this again. Islanders 6, Philly, Rangers. No, let me go Philly 5, Rangers 4, Pittsburgh 5, Rangers 4, Philly 3, Washington 2 because they have OV. Boston number 1. I think Boston still has by far the best team in the NHL. I think the bubble hurt them completely. They weren't completely ready for that. They're lucky they won their opening round series against Carolina. I think that would be the way I would put that division this year. It's still the toughest division in all of hockey.
Hands down.
I know the 2 Stanley Cup finalists we'll talk about in a second had moved over to the South, but this is still the toughest division in hockey, and it's going to be a bloodbath. And there's no days off for the Rangers, Islanders, or Devils in this schedule.
And then you throw in the fact that the Bruins is part of the division.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When I say
the traditional rivals, it's going to be really tough for all three local teams to still wins.
It's going to be interesting in the Bruins case because they're not beating up on the Torontos of the world like we'll talk about momentarily. But I think Boston would fit right in because their talent over the last 3 years in the NHL is by far the best. And again, 2 years ago, they went to a 7th game of the actual real last regular season that the NHL had. We love the bubble, but a real regular season is what Boston went through 2 years ago when they almost won it all. Moving on. As we mentioned before, the NHL radically changed their division format this year, and they're still looking for sponsors, guys. I think the Eastern sponsor should be something like the Dunkin' Donuts Eastern Division because that's exactly where most of the people love in the Eastern time zone. So we're going to go with the Dunkin' Donuts Eastern Division. I have a good one for the Canadian Division, which I'm doing in a few minutes. So instead of this host taking 10 minutes to explain to you the whole new process, I figured we just go division of labor and divvy out some of our hard-earned time to do it ourselves. So each of us will take a division and we'll do our quick 2021 NHL preview. Let's start with Anthony in the West.
Yeah, I get the West Division, sponsored by Hyundai. I guess it's better than Buick, but look, the West Division is pretty top-heavy. You got 3 good teams, and the other divisions are kind of borderline good to not so good, which is where you don't want to be in this season, the National Hockey League, when you're kind of a borderline playoff team, but you're not as good to really do some damage. And most of this division is in that category, but I'll focus on the 3 good teams for that matter. And I'll start with Colorado and the Colorado Avalanche. They got their top pairing of Caleb McCarr and obviously Taves, who left the Islanders. He's in Colorado, so that's a big boost for that team. And then you think about the combination of Nathan McKinnon with Mikko Rantanen as part of that group as well. There's a good chance they could actually win this division. Then you think about my unofficial second team, which is the Vegas Golden Knights. It seems like I always get stuck with the Golden Knights angle on this show. Maybe because I have a soft spot for Vegas and being there a couple years ago for a few of their home games. But obviously, they still got the goalie combination of Robert Leonard and Marc-Andre Fleury. And when you got and that's as good as a goalie combination as it gets, you're always contending. You're arguably a 1A to the second best team in that division. Then you have the St. Louis Blues, who have Torrey Krug, Mike Hoffman coming back. They can remember just 2 seasons ago, they were the Stanley Cup champions and singing Gloria. So they can be just as good to come out of the division. It's going to come out to these 3 teams. You got the rest of the division. Anaheim, San Jose was kind of going through a bit of a soft rebuild. The Kings was kind of taking a few steps back, and Arizona just not being a good team overall. It's a very top-heavy division. You only kind of see the three teams that's going to come out and make a playoffs. It's going to be a kind of a logjam who get that fourth playoff spot, and get into the postseason. It's kind of fun to see the NHL go back to the postseason format that they had in the early 80s and the early 90s, where the top four teams get in. Unfortunately, you're going to have a lot of teams kind of borderline mediocre fighting for a one-and-done playoff situation, and we see this definitely in this West Division. I think the most exciting thing about this is the sponsorship being given to Hyundai. Like I said, it's a very top-heavy division.
Did Hyundai actually get the sponsorship in this division?
Confirmed, yes. And by the way, the East Division is being sponsored by Mass Mutual.
Oh, God. Okay. So I need to figure out what the actual things are. I was thinking the West would be sponsored by Jack in the Box, but that's just me.
I have
been a perfect sponsorship.
Wouldn't the West have been sponsored by like In-N-Out Burger? Come on.
Well, Jack in the Box and In-N-Out are about the same thing. I do a lot of Lakers telecasts, so I just hear Jack in the Box as their promotion.
Fair enough.
One thing I do have to say about the West, though, 8 teams were not invited to the bubble last year. 3 of them the California teams, so that shows exactly why they're all rebuilding. Don't sleep on Arizona, though. They had a nice little postseason run there. They're probably that worst team right now, and then everybody else is looking at them. But again, who knows with the Kings? LA has had a magical year. The Rams are in the Final 8. The Lakers won the title. The Dodgers won the title. So who the hell knows? LA might just be making a run based on principle. Jay, the 2 Stanley Cup champions lie in your division.
Yeah, that's the Central Division. The realignment of teams and divisions for 2021, as Rabbi said, had the unique side effect of putting both Stanley Cup finalists, the Tampa Bay Lightning and Dallas Stars, in the same division. Again, that's the Dallas Stars, who have 17 positive COVID tests out of the 27 for the entire NHL. Good going. One more unusual sports happening due to trying to play a sports season without a bubble during a pandemic. Thanks, COVID. The redefined Central Division, sponsored by Discover, has a bunch of middle-of-the-pack teams like the Carolina Hurricanes, the Columbus Blue Jackets, the aforementioned Dallas Stars, Florida Panthers, Nashville Predators, and the Chicago Blackhawks, all who had between 72 and 82 points. Then you got, the Detroit Red Wings, who are the devils of this division. They're going to finish dead last, just as they did last year when they only put up 39 points. And then you have the defending champion, Tampa Bay Lightning. To borrow a March Madness analogy, guys, does any top team have an easier road on paper to the NHL's Final Four? I mean, the Lightning were as dominant last season as they were the season before when they put up the NHL's best record, only to get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. They completed the University of Virginia college basketball comeback by winning the Stanley Cup the following year. The change of divisions actually gives Tampa Bay an even better chance to do it again. Instead of having to fend off the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs, their toughest competition, well, originally I said it was going to be Dallas, their opponent in last year's Stanley Cup Finals, but somehow after all those positive tests, I'm thinking it could be anybody from Carolina to Columbus. Who knows? It boggles my mind. It could even be, for all I know, Nashville could be their top competition. Who knows? And with every game being a divisional game, this would seem to make the Lightning's path back to at least the conference finals. An easy one, as none of these teams stack up to the same level Tampa Bay has faced in the past. So winning this division is seemingly much easier than last year's Atlantic Division. Look, they won't have star winger Nikita Kucherov, who's going to be on long-term injured reserve after hip surgery, but their top 6 forwards and top 4 defense pairings that a lot of teams would take. First line, Palat, Point, Stamkos. How many teams can lose a Kucherov and replace him with a Stamkos? How about none? Second line, Killorn, Cirelli, Volkov. First defensive pairing, Hedman and Ruda. Hedman is as devastating in the offensive zone as he is moving the puck in transition and locking things down defensively. He puts up points, he drives plays at an elite level at both ends of the floor of the ice, There's a reason he's the NHL's top defenseman. Second D pair, Ryan McDonough and Eric Cernak. Throw in Andrei Vasilevsky in between the pipes. He have the 35-14-4 record with a 2.56 goals against average and a .917 save percentage in last year's regular season, and he followed that with going 18-7 with a 1.9 goals against average and a .927 save percentage in the playoffs. And I'm not sure how you pick against the Lightning coming out of this division. I know I'm not.
No, that's the easiest bet.
Hashtag walk in the park, Rabbi?
It's not that, well, it's the NHL. Nothing is a walk in the park, but if there's anything that's close to a walk in the park, this is a walk in the park. And again, the West and the Central are divisions that have some holes. The Eastern doesn't, and sure as hell, the North, sponsored by Scotia, does not at all. The all-Canadian
best division that's going to be the best division in hockey this season.
I think it's going to be the best. I still think the East is the best division in hockey because 1 through 6 could be any combination. However, that North division is stacked.
Brutal.
Yes. Outside of the Ottawa Senators, who are the only team to not make the bubble and are going to be the whipping boys for the rest of this division. You play them, I believe, 8 or 9 times. I wouldn't be surprised if 35 wins come out of wins against Ottawa in this division. They are bad. Winnipeg is a team that has had a good pedigree in the playoffs in these last few years, but they are kind of experiencing a downfall right now. You lost Jacob Trouba over the last few seasons. You lost Dmitry Kulikov over the last few seasons. They're going to have – they have a Vezina Award winner in Connor Hellebuck from last year. They're good, but I don't think they're anywhere good enough. I think they'll still be a team who's fighting for that 4th playoff spot. The Canadians made a run last year. They still have Carey Price in goal. They'll always have Carey Price in goal. They beat the Pittsburgh Penguins in the first round, in the qualifying round of the bubble. They are kind of like the Flyers that I mentioned before. They made a run last year. They're going to get stronger. The only question is, can they be the top 4 in this division, which is pretty tough. Anthony, you mentioned the Toronto Maple Leafs. They don't have to play Boston anymore, but they're going to have the weight of Canada on their shoulders to finish first in a Canadian division. Jonathan Harris and Austin Matthews are first overall picks that still need to live up to their expectations. You got Wayne Simons on a 1-year deal. Let's see what the Leafs do. There's always high expectations on them. They can finish anywhere from 1st to 4th in this division. You have the Vancouver Canucks, who we saw last year has some of the best young talent in all of hockey. They made the bubble fun. They almost got themselves to the conference finals. I could see them easily winning this division. They're probably going to finish 2nd or 3rd. Calgary, we saw them with that collapse against Dallas in the playoffs last year in the 2nd round. Also a young team. You have Matthew Tkachuk on this team. You have Johnny Gaudreau, who is probably the best player in this team since Jarome Iginla. I don't know what to expect from Calgary, but I think they could easily win the division. And, of course, you have Edmonton. They lost to Chicago in the first round, but you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. This team could easily give you the new Messier and Gretzky. I don't know what to expect, but any of those 6 teams that I can mention, put them in a tumbler, and that could easily be the order. Edmonton could easily win this division. They can miss the playoffs. Calgary could easily win this division. They can miss the playoffs. The Canadian division is going to be a bloodbath. And if and when they can actually leave Canada to go to the United States for the conference finals, they might be a team to watch.
Are we sure that that's going to be the process? Because I'm more inclined to believe that it's, you know, the lower north teams come up to the north to play in a bubble inside of Canada like they did last year. To me, that makes more sense. It'll be interesting to see how they play.
Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen, especially.
Hey, look,
who knows?
Look, I'm like this. The North Division is going to be the most fun to watch for me. I think the East Division is the toughest. The North is going to be fun to watch. The only thing I'm disappointed is, how does Scotia get the sponsorships and that Tim Hortons? I mean, come on, you kidding me?
I was gonna literally
Scotiabank is Canada-wide. Tim Horton is not Canada-wide.
Yeah, but I mean, come on. If I'm watching the National Hockey League, I equate Tim Horton donuts and a good maple frosted donut and a cup of coffee to watching Hockey Night in Canada. All right.
As if we needed another reason to miss not being able to go to Madison Square Garden, Anthony.
Okay, I apologize. I miss going to Canada too, man. I love Toronto, but yeah, I miss. Yeah, I'm not going to a Ranger game at some point this season. It sucks. How about you, Jay?
I know. Let's just say though, for anybody who doesn't like Tim Hortons in Canada, which I think is a national crime, we're sorry. All right, let's move on.
Yeah, it is.
We're gonna do a quick recap of the college football 2021 final that happened last night. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it was kind of a snoozer because Alabama just proved their dominance. Last year's was a snoozer, but when your team wins the college football national championship, you actually enjoy it. When the team you hate wins the college football national championship, not so much. 52-24, a ass kicking by Alabama to give Nick Saban his 7th national title, which is the most all-time now in college football history. A start to finish for Alabama, which puts them in one of the greatest seasons of all time. But the bloodbath in Miami is now over. The worst college football season in history, and not just because Alabama won it, but because of all of the COVID cancellations and the fact we could have had an 8-0, grueling 8-0 national championship. It's funny how Nick Saban says, we're the SEC team that won 11 victories. That's great. Imagine if Ryan Day was up there and said, no Big Ten team has ever won 6 games like we did this year. That would have kind of just been funny if that happened. Jay, final thoughts on the national team.
It's kind of funny, Rabbi, that you talk about the team that's most hated, and for you, that's Bama. For me, it's Ohio State. So I actually have no problem with the outcome. Not that I'm a Bama fan by any stretch of the imagination, but as a Michigan guy, I can't root for Ohio State. At one point, guys, do you remember when this game was actually 14-14 and we thought we'd actually have a game? Alabama outscored Ohio State 38-10 from that point on to give Nick Saban that 7th title, putting him one up on Bear Bryant. They broke the game open with a 28-point second quarter, and they just never looked back. I mean, Devontae Smith outplayed the entire Ohio State team in the first half. The Buckeyes had 191 total yards. Smith had 215. I mean, as the rabbi texted Anthony and me during that game, those are Madden numbers, and you are correct, sir. And anyone who doubted that he was deserving of both the Heisman and the AP Player of the Year awards, how you like him now? Hopefully his dislocated finger injury isn't too serious, and he will be ready to go on Sundays come September. As he said to ESPN's Maria Taylor, quote, I'll be all right. I have no doubt he will. I said last week when we previewed this game that it was all about the Tide's triplets, and they more than did their jobs. Mac Jones, 36 of 45, 464 yards, and 5 touchdowns, 0 picks. Najee Harris, rushed for 79, caught for 79, 2 TDs on the ground, 1 through the air. And Smith put up those 215 yards on 12 catches and connected with Jones on 3 TDs. The fact that Alabama won this, had no problems winning this game without the services of their Heisman winner in the second half, that speaks volumes of what Nick Saban has done with this team. I mean, Alabama was never really in any danger of a Buckeye second half comeback, despite not having the Heisman winner for the final 38 minutes. You talk about depth, you talk about the Tide's offense, their ability of their defense to keep Justin Fields pretty much in check. Yes, the Buckeyes lost star running back Trey Sermon in the first quarter, but I honestly don't know, guys, if it would have been enough to put the final score in Ohio State's favor. Would the score have been closer? Yeah, maybe, but I still think the Tide would have rolled.
You know what? All I'm saying is that 2 things. Number one, Nick Saban is officially Thanos of college football because
damn right.
Because he's collected all the Infinity Stones and he is ready to conquer everything. Okay, with the snap of a finger. That's number one. Number two, Devontae Smith set the Twitter world ablaze about his performance in the first half. If he doesn't leave the game, he's clearly going over 300 receiving yards because Ohio State had no answer for him on defense. There was one touchdown pass. He was being covered by a linebacker of all the things, it was just unreal to see him putting up video game numbers in the first half. And this is before he dislocated his finger. And look, and Matt Jones threw for 464. So it wasn't like he was so greatly missed in the second half. But also, you got Justin Fields. He was clearly not 100% last night. I mean, he looked dinged up. I give him credit for trying to tough it out. He threw for 194 yards, a touchdown. But after Trey Sermon left the game with an injury, it made Ohio State's offense even more one-dimensional, and the fact that clearly without the running game and to keep Alabama's high-potent offense off the field long enough. I mean, it was a close game for 10 minutes, and Alabama just said, okay, this scrimmage is officially over. Now let's actually start playing. Their offense, they could have just named a final score. And I think, if it hadn't been for a couple of early miscues, they could have scored 70. Who knows? I mean, I never seen an offense this good and this explosive with the fact that they don't even look like – I watched a lot of Alabama games this season, including the SEC Championship game against Florida. There was at no point this season did I ever watch an Alabama game and felt like there was a chance they were going to lose because that offense was just so good and so talented. And I hope someone, Joe Douglas, from the New York Jets organization, was watching Devontae Smith because it's like, look, right now, your biggest problem is you need weapons. Never mind a quarterback. You need somebody who could – you need weapons on offense. You have a Heisman Trophy winner who's a clear number 2 and show why he was a clear number 2 last night. And look, I saw a lot of combinations, a lot of comparisons to Marvin Harrison, to Reggie Wayne, not just in his route runner and the fact that he doesn't even look fast and he's still getting wide open. But his calm and quiet demeanor, I think, would be perfect in a locker room with the Jets. I think it's sorely needed in a Jets locker room compared to what we saw this past season, the last 2 years under Adam Gase. I hope somebody. I hope somebody.
We have a long time to talk Jets draft.
Yeah,
status.
but
I think we do.
but Devontae Smith. I mean, the first half was a showcase, but last night was more of a coordination of one of the most dominant offensive squads we have seen in a very, very long time.
I think would you compare it to you can favorably compare it to LSU's team from last year. That literally was the same name your own score and they'll do it for you. This Alabama team, especially in the shortened season, wasn't going to be challenged in any way, shape, or form when we saw it there. Let me look at the other side for a second. A lot of people said Justin Fields' stock dropped last night because of this performance. I disagree. I think it was I think whoever you thought Justin Fields was going into, not this game, but going into the Sugar Bowl, is the quarterback that you're going to see in the NFL draft. This is kind of a regression to the mean. Fields is a good quarterback, but if you take away his running back at the beginning of the game, you're going to not have a good game. It's pretty simple as that. Fields went 17 for 33, 194 yards, 1 touchdown. It's obvious he wasn't playing at 100% because of the hit that was given to him in the Clemson game. He did run the ball 6 for 67, ran for a 33-yard play. He is a good quarterback. He's going to be a decent pro. He's going to need a lot of maturing, and unlike a certain Ohio State quarterback who's probably not going to be starting another game anytime soon, and Dwayne Haskins, he'll probably take anything that he learns with and he'll keep putting it into his head, and that'll make him a better quarterback. I think Ohio State had a good season. They would have probably lost the game if it was a full season. They may not have been in this position if it was a full season. I still think the 2 best teams did make the title game. But again, college football, I don't think Alabama has an asterisk. I think this is a legitimate national championship that they won. But who the heck knows for the future of just college football in general? Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, they're all going to continue rolling for years to come. However, let's mention Nick Saban. I hate to give the devil his due, but he's become an offensive guru, kind of like how Greg Popovich was in those last first titles. He's like, I don't want to embrace his three-point offense. And then he had one of the most efficient offenses in the history of the NBA in 2013 and 2014. Should have been back-to-back titles. Nick Saban has become an offensive head coach. Nick Saban has found NFL and college football head coach quality assistants, as Jay knows, and we just saw Sark get introduced to the University of Texas today. And there are rumors that people like Bill O'Brien or Adam Gase could become the offensive coordinator of Alabama. I think both would be excellent choices in that position. I think Alabama has just done a complete remodeling of their program, and you still have guys like Patrick Surtain who are going to be in the first round of the NFL draft. The Tide are going to have at least 6 to 7 people in the first round of the NFL draft, most likely, and that would be a record for one team in one season. The only team that did that was Miami in 2004. So I think this is going to be an Alabama program, same as usual. The cream rises to the crop, and Alabama is going to be a force for many, many years to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, Devontae Smith said it best last night. They don't rebuild, they reload. I mean, their recruiting has been unbelievable the last few seasons.
And here's the scary thing, Rabbi. You remember in the early part of the turn of the century where Nick Saban was trying to get rules put in place to slow the game down because he was still running offenses that were 3 yards in a cloud of dust and big defense to shut people down. He recognized that the game wasn't going to continue going down this 9-6 whoever gets the last field goal type of game. He saw the future. He saw where the game was going. And instead of continuing to rail against it, he adapted. And the fact that he adapted and his offenses are now Madden-like in terms of their ability to put up numbers has only improved Alabama's ability to recruit not only the better defensive players in the nation, but the best offensive players in the nation. And that's not going to change. And that's scary as hell for the rest of the college football universe, that Alabama recognized what needed to be changed about their program, did it, and they got better by leaps and bounds, and they were already really good.
Saban is almost name your own championships at this point. All right, we're done. We are done with another edition of On the Sports Lines. Remember, you can see this show you've missed or any of the ones that you can see this show again or any of the ones that you missed at youtube.com/onthesportslines. To see announcements for this show or to watch us live, as we hope you're doing right now, see us at facebook.com/onthesportslines and
check at ONTH Sportslines, which is our Twitter handle, where links to this show, our channel, and other interesting fun stuff can be found.
We are back next week with whatever and a conference title game preview.
And
so
Final Four.
Yes. Don't put your hands up.
I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
We got to get through divisional round weekend first. For Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait, my name is Stephen Rabinowitz. Good night from On the Sports Line.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.